In 1982, a man was found hanging beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London. His pockets were stuffed with cash. His shoes were filled with bricks. His name was Roberto Calvi. He was the chairman of Italy's largest private bank, and his bank answered to the Vatican. Behind the marble colonnades of St. Peter's Square, beneath the gilded ceilings of the world's smallest sovereign state, there existed a bank, not a normal bank, a bank with no regulator, no oversight, no accountability to any government on earth, and for decades, that bank became the perfect machine for laundering the darkest money in the world. The clients included Sicilian Mafia bosses, corrupt politicians, and the architects of Italy's most devastating financial collapse. This is the story of how the Catholic Church's bank became one of the most dangerous financial institutions in modern history, and how one man's death cracked it open. The Institute for the Works of Religion, that is the official name. Most people know it simply as the Vatican Bank. It was founded in 1942 by Pope Pius XII. Its stated mission was simple: to manage funds destined for religious works around the world. But its legal structure was anything but simple. The Vatican Bank existed outside the jurisdiction of every nation on earth. Italy could not audit it. The European Union could not regulate it. Interpol had no standing there. For anyone who needed money to disappear and reappear somewhere clean, it was the closest thing to a perfect sanctuary. The man who understood this best was not a cardinal. He was not a priest. He was a Sicilian-American banker named Michele Sindona. In the 1960s, Sindona cultivated a close relationship with the Vatican's financial leadership. He helped the church move money offshore, legally at first. He was brilliant. He was charming. He was connected to Cosa Nostra. When Sindona eventually collapsed, his American bank failing spectacularly in 1974, he handed his Vatican connections to a younger protege. Roberto Calvi. Calvi was not flashy, he was methodical, quiet. Colleagues called him Il Cavaliere, the Knight. He rose to lead Banco Ambrosiano, a Milan-based institution with deep Catholic roots, and through a web of shell companies spanning the Bahamas, Luxembourg, Peru, and Nicaragua, he built a financial pipeline that moved money on an extraordinary scale. The mechanism was almost elegant. Banco Ambrosiano would loan hundreds of millions of dollars to a chain of ghost companies in Latin America. Those companies existed only on paper. Their sole purpose was to receive the money and to ensure it was never repaid. Where did it go? Part of it went to Italian political parties. Part of it went to the Sicilian Mafia, and a significant portion flowed through the Vatican Bank. The man at the Vatican who enabled this was Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, head of the Vatican Bank, former bodyguard to Pope Paul VI, born in Cicero, Illinois, the same city that once sheltered Al Capone. Marcinkus signed letters of comfort, informal guarantees, for the shell companies, letters that made them appear credible to outside lenders, letters that, investigators would later argue, made the Vatican a knowing participant in the fraud. But here is where the story becomes something stranger, something darker than simple financial crime. In 1981, Italian police raided the villa of a financier named Licio Gelli. In a briefcase, they found a list, coded names, hundreds of them. The list was the membership roster of Propaganda Due, known as P2, a secret Masonic lodge that had embedded itself inside the Italian state. Its members included generals, judges, cabinet ministers, intelligence chiefs, and the heads of all three Italian secret services. Roberto Calvi was on the list. So was Michele Sindona. The investigation into Banco Ambrosiano was not just a banking scandal. It was the exposure of a shadow government operating inside a NATO democracy. And that changed everything, because it meant that if Calvi fell, if he talked, he would not simply bring down a bank. He would bring down a significant portion of Italy's ruling class. By the spring of 1982, Banco Ambrosiano was hemorrhaging. Investigators were closing in. Calvi had been convicted of currency violations. He was out on bail, appealing the verdict. His letters to senior Vatican officials grew desperate. In one letter to the Pope himself, Calvi wrote that the church faced catastrophe unless action was taken. The letter went unanswered. On June 10, 1982, Roberto Calvi disappeared from Rome. He traveled under a false passport through Austria and Britain. On June 18th, a postal worker discovered his body beneath Blackfriars Bridge. Italian authorities initially ruled it a suicide. British authorities initially agreed. Almost no one believed them. The investigation that followed lasted decades. Banco Ambrosiano collapsed in July 1982 with a hole of $1.3 billion in its accounts. It remains the largest bank failure in Italian history. Thousands of ordinary shareholders lost everything. Archbishop Marcinkus was indicted by Italian magistrates as an accessory to fraudulent bankruptcy. He retreated behind Vatican walls. Italy could not touch him. He lived out his days in the Vatican's protection, eventually retiring to Sun City, Arizona, where he died in 2006. He was never tried. The Vatican eventually paid $250 million to Ambrosiano's creditors, not as an admission of guilt, they insisted, but as a gesture of goodwill. A gesture worth $250 million. As for Roberto Calvi, in 2002, British authorities overturned the original suicide verdict. A murder. 5 members of the Sicilian Mafia were eventually tried in Rome for the killing. In 2010, all 5 were acquitted due to insufficient evidence. The case remains officially unsolved. Licio Gelli, the Grandmaster of P2, died under house arrest in 2015 at the age of 96, still appealing various convictions. Michele Sindona was convicted of murder in Italy in 1986, the murder of the lawyer investigating his own financial crimes. 2 days after his sentencing, he drank a cup of cyanide-laced coffee in his prison cell. It was ruled a suicide. The Vatican Bank still exists. It is still located in that medieval tower inside Vatican City. In 2013, Pope Francis launched genuine reforms, new oversight bodies, new transparency requirements, accounts belonging to suspected criminals and non-religious organizations were closed by the hundreds. But the fundamental structure remains unchanged. The Vatican Bank still answers ultimately to no government on earth but its own. What the Calvi affair revealed was something that institutions rarely survive having exposed. That proximity to the sacred does not confer immunity from the profane. That the language of morality and the mechanics of crime can coexist within the same walls, sometimes within the same ledger. The bricks in Roberto Calvi's shoes were never explained. Neither was exactly who put them there. But they were heavy enough to take a man to the bottom, and not quite heavy enough to keep the truth there forever. Thank you so much for watching. Quick reminder, some dramatic scenes in this video were generated with artificial intelligence for educational purposes only. If you enjoyed this historical case, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the notification bell so you never miss new videos.